think we could make some progress today in the Rashash Siddur. So just as a quick review, what we're seeing here is the idea, the fount, or the spring from which this flows. He says it's coming out of the Kachav, the Chagat, the Chub, the Nai, the Yasas. So that's the coordinates of the spring from which this flows. And then on the first page, I'm reading the first page. On the first page, we have the flow of all of the oros together with their mochin coming down. And they go all the way into the kalim of Chabad Chagat 9. First is the oros and the kalim, and the mochin. And then it shows the kalim. Then it introduces another idea, I believe, which is the hair of the head of Eric Anpin, which comes down onto the back of the head on the neck, let's say, of Zeranpin. And you have three different kinds of hairs. You have Sa'aros and Nimim and Kotzim. Some of them already reach, that's the Kotzim, which are much longer. They reach all the way down to to become an Or Makif, because that's what we're dealing with the Tzitzis. For Rachel is the Nuftazah. You have another set going upwards, the Nimim, which are the bundles of hairs, they make it to the head of Leah, and they provide a certain amount of shefa. So then we're coming over here to the page. I'm on my page, Samach Tes. One second. Samach Tes. And what he's showing us, Aharas Tzitzis Shebizman Beis Hamikdash. So all of this setup over here, which is composed of two forms, which is Yaakov and Aqua. So all of that's the ha'ara that's contained in the tzitzis that we're talking about. And the whole thing we're talking about is while you're pulling the two tzitzis on the right side over the left shoulder and leaving the other two standing there. Then the next vision is a tzitzis shebizman beis hamikdash, which is a combination of Aki and Akko. That's what I see here. So it's a combination of that, and so that's what we're doing. So now that we introduced the hairs in the back of the head of Zeranpin, and then we came over and we start showing the light that's flowing down to Zeranpin. And now the third drawing, which is easy enough to see what the drawing is Yaakov and Aki, and a combination of Shilav of those names. He says it makes a gematria of the word Shanus, and I know that we had that, but I didn't really. It doesn't, maybe it's because of the pasuk. I didn't really look at it. Shanos Chai Melech. So this is the next stage as we're describing it further. And then we said v'yordim kol hamochim and naz b'shlisha elyon the teferes dezag up to the third, which is the area which is covered by Leah. So now we see shlosh. Shlish Elyon to Teferes Dezah. He says that's what the Shlish Elyon is, Teferes Dezah is. So all of this flow from up above is coming into that place. And then it says, then there's 600 more Oros that we need to deal with. Yochel Lahamshich, the Yesod Dezah, ultimately winds up in the Yesod Dezah, in Misham Lahamshichem L'Rochel. So now that shows, this is the whole flow chart. Introduced what's inside of the tzitzis, or what the tzitzis represent, the Kavanot there, and including introduction of the hairs of Eric Anpin. Now, on the next page, I'm not sure how far we got here. So now we got to the Yesod of Zeranpin, and that's for the purpose of bringing it over. I think the Yesod of the Yesod. Oros Yaakam and Lahamshich on the Yesod is their Anpin. Okay, and from the Yesod of your Anpin, then they're going to come to Rachel on page Ayin. That's my page Ayin. We have here Gam Yekavin Shaderek of Morim, so it's going to pass. There's going to be it's like a bridge. Yesod the Ima Shuhu Shem Kane. So this he says like this. This is a fact that he's stating that we should maybe know this for some other place. He says the name Connor. Okay, we'll wait. We should have these little interruptions here. Okay, All right, back again. He says the Shem Kana is the name of the Yesod of Ima. So in the Yesod of Ima, what happens is it winds up in the Yesod of Ima, and that's what it looks like. Now, the thing is to remember all these things without having to spend hours on it to be able to get an idea what the flow is. And so then we see here there are four levushim. Once it gets into the Yesod of Ima, just doesn't come from the Yesod of Zeranpin and then goes into Rachel. It doesn't just work like that. It has to be clothed. So he said, Lokeach kol echad midalid mochim anaz levush mi Yesod de Ima v'heim dalid shemeless kone, and that's what they have the same gematria tzitzis, and here you go. So now that's actually the kavanot that you're supposed to have at the very beginning of what's flowing, and now he says the actions should take place, and that's where you throw the two tzitzis on the right side over the left shoulder. And he says this is composed of, and I'm not sure that I understand a whole from his description. He says base kasa, so im yud vav osios, that's two kasas, 161 and 161, with the 16 letters that are made out of them. Elu base tzitzios atuluyus befonov. So now he's actually describing the tzitzis that are still hanging down there on the front, and this is a milui of Akia, which is everything's coming from Ima, of Yudin. Now, why exactly he has the Akia down below that? Because he didn't have a description for it. Let's see what it says on the right side. He says the Hamshech Shemos Kasa Shehem Chub Im Yudvav Osir Sharsham Shemispara Vayishkav. Derech Hapanim. So the Reisha de Yaakov. So it's on the front. This is the part that's on the front. Those are the ones that don't move. And the ones that don't move represent Chub, and the ones that do move, that in other words you throw the shoulder, are the Chug. So he said, Derech Hapanim, the Reisha de Yaakov, and it falls down, it's supposed to be the concept, that it's on the head of Yaakov, Elohim Ambes Tzitzios, and Isharim Teluya Lefonim, that's where they are. So then he says, comes over here, and he says, Derech Hapanim, the Reisha de Yaakov, and that's where it comes down. Then down below it says Kamav and Kana, so you have these two together. So you're looking here at the Milui of Kana, which is 151, and he says Kamav and excuse me, I said it said wrong. It's a Kamav and Kana. It's both of them together. He says for some reason I can't see it. Pachos osios. So here we're just saying Ashurish, so in other words, just the milui of that. Now, that's what you're taking now. So from the stage of where you got it to the concept of let's see, what do you do? This is so you have the tzitzis in the front, they're still there, and those are the ones that are hanging down to Yaakov. And then you have Kamag and Kani, put them together. What do they do? He says, Lacham shekabebeis mochin the chug. The chug. Now we're talking about the chug that went over the shoulders, which are kamag and kana. So he says that's what the chug is, because they're the lower ones, and they would represent the lower miluyim. Bli osis are shorish. So you take just that part, not the shorish, but you take in other words, the outside part of it. Kamisbar hey gavuros mansipach, which is the same combination as the five gavuros, which are mansipach. Mansipach, the gematria, 280. Im hey osius ashorish, that makes it 285. And also a kolel, that makes it 286. Derek ha'achid goes back all over the back. The Reisha de Rachel. So that's actually what's inside, I guess, the oros themselves, or the oros are the extension, the oros themselves. What's mansipach? Mansipachs are dinim. There's a sweetened dinim. They're going down onto the Reisha de Rachel, and that's the idea that as you're throwing this over your shoulder. So he says, hey gimel, hey gavuros, which are gematria of mansipach, Im hey osius ashorish v'hakoilo derech achas agandan derech achim, throw them over the back. Where do they go? They go to the Reisha de Rachel. V'heim habei sitzios the mitzad yamino sheba'akrov the mitzad smolo. So they're the two tzitzios that were on the right side, and you're throwing them over the back. So then, as we go to the left column, it says derek ha'ach l'reisha de Rachel. So now that we said that we finally got it to the place where it's coming down onto the head of Rachel, because before that we were talking about the lights, what they look like. We threw in an Eric Anpin in there also. Okay, so we got to the derech ha'ach l'reisha de Rachel. We got that over to reisha de Rachel. Now it says, I'm going to read on the right side at first, L'hamshich Yud Shemus de Ben. So 10 Shemus of Ben is the gematria 520. And that gematria here, so he's guessing he's giving us a qualitative idea of what's actually going down there. He says the psil, which is the thread itself, the string itself, is also gematria 520. Shehem or makif, this is an or makif that's going on and being shining on the head of Rachel. Or makif yashar, which is nimshach mizah liyud seferis denuk. So here we said these 10 bends are going to make the concept of the psil itself. So that's an idea over there. So now let's look down at the bottom and we get to the ultimate bottom. He said l'hamshech hazayin margolon. Now another place in Shabbos, we have another place where it refers to these 7 pearls. I don't think it's the same 7 pearls, but I didn't look it up. Actually, it's not in this book. It's in another one. These are the 7 pearls. One is Havaya, which is Menukah with a cholim, and then there's another Havaya which is Menukah as we see it. Then you have Matz, Yak Adni, Kale, Elokim, and Matz again. So they come to the gematria. That's gematria by my count 849, and the word techelis is 850. So all of this with the kola that make their equivalent. So what are these? This is actually the blue part of the string of the tzitzis, which he said was in the time of the Beis Hamikdash. Here we're coming around to the conclusion, or I don't know if we'll get there today, but we'll get close. Is the Akser called the Dalet Tzitzios la'acharav? So now you take the tzitzis and you throw them, all 4, you get them back together again, I guess. I try to think of what is the action that you actually want to do here. And he says you're going to take them all 4 and you're going to throw them around the back. Now, he has a star down at the bottom, if we want to look at that. Let me see if I can get this closer. And it says, Kan Ya'aseh Beis HaKos B'Dalet Tzitzios. Now, he means with the 4 tzitzis, you're going to do this twice. That's what it sounds like. You're going to throw it over your shoulder, all of them over your shoulder, I guess, and you're going to do this 2 times. First, you take all 4 and you throw them over your back. So what's the pshat over here? Because actually, the production is really coming from Eric Anpin to a certain extent, because this is flowing down onto the back of the neck of Zer Anpin. And so you're taking the tzitzis, which are makif, you're throwing them, all 4 of them, over the back of the head. This is, and he says, Yekaved, when you're doing this, the hakos kutzitz ari, which are already there, which are on the back, the Eric Anpin bazah. So what does that do? The funnel, so they take all 4 of them, and you bring them around to your face. V'shuv yachser kol hatzitzios la'achrav, and then you do it again. So you bring them over the left shoulder, you bring them all back, and you do it again. Whoops, I think we lost our rabbi here once again. Yeah, I'm sorry. I heard a sound and I thought that you went dead. Okay, so I'm really sorry. V'yakavan lahakos kutza des arid zer anpin b'chaluk. So, what's that word? Zer anpin benuk. So he says that you're taking the concept of the hairs of Zer anpin and you're striking with the nook. The first time is you're going to strike the head, the kutzah, the tsa'ari, let's just call them the hairs that are coming off of Eric Anpin, which I guess is the, what you said, the tsarim, or the part that goes down the furthest. I forget that, I have to look it up again. So he says, now you're doing that part, the tsa'ari, the zer anpin, you're striking them with the nook. Let me read that again. The shuv yakser kol tzitzios achrav. And what are you doing when you do it a second time? Because now you're talking about the hair of the head of Zer Anten, which falls down onto the head of the nook. Kate moving Bishar Kavanos, Resh Rush base, so also we have that over there. He says, I don't know what this, I tried to look it up, I couldn't find it. But Knesset, I don't know, but I don't know. Those who minchag base ale, because this is the minhag that they had at base ale going way back. Hoyadas Marina Rebbeinu Gram, which is I go in Rabbi Mordechai Sharabi, he says it's Zuko, v'chein minchag lemaisa. So this is in fact how the Kabbalists do that. I didn't know that. First you throw, so now what we have is we're throwing it over the left shoulder. That's the two right tzitzis. Right side rich will go over the shoulder. You bring them back. The first two, that represents the chug. And then you have the chub, which is still standing there. Then you pick the whole bunch up. You throw it over your shoulder. That's bringing it over to, for the purpose, he said, of striking the hairs of Eric Anpin that are there, which produce a reaction. And he says, Umasha Kasav Milvad Ma Shlichem Beit Tzitzios the Akrav. So this, what we're talking about is the action here. You're doing this twice, is not counting the time that you did it once before at the beginning. V'achakach od Beit Tzitzios the Milvad Zed Sarak La'asos Beis Akos Elu Vashem Yoyer Einenu. So that's apparently that is the minhag that we do. Now going back up to the top. And we'll get into our instructions. So he says, Yaksir called Dalit Tzitzios L'acharav. He's going to close all the four tzitzis around to his back. So we said the Kutza de Tza'ari, the hairs, the bundles of hair are falling down. Erik Anpen, Achre Resha de Zer Anpen along the back. Maka Ba'arpo, and they strike actually on the back of the neck. And this is what the mochin that come into Zer Anpin from the top of his head are inside the head of Zer Anpin, and when they're struck by the Kutza de Tza'ari of Eric Anpin, that's what causes them to generate I know the Tefillin Shal Rosh, but at any rate, he says is umagala as a result of that the mochin that are inside of Zer Anpin. And then the Hamshech HaKutzis Tza'ari de Zer Anpin. And then what we want to do is we want to take that generated mochin in Zer Anpin, which apparently affects the hairs on the head of Zer Anpin and his beard, I know from other places. He says, Akutza de Tza'ari de Zer Anpin, Ba'achre Reisha de Nook, and it falls down onto the back of the head of the Nook, just like it sounds like the same idea that you saw over there with the hair from Eric Anpin that went around the back of the head of Zer Anpin. Here now Zer Anpin is generating to the Nook. Umaka Ba'arpa, and it strikes her head. L'motzi ha'aras ha'mochin dilah, and it brings out the mochin, the ha'ara from her mochin, the same thing. V'yakser hatzitzias lefonav. And then when that is done, and you have two different kavanos there, when that is done, you bring them back. Now, he shows over here in the V'yistakel, he says, now, here's what you need to do now. You should look at your tzitzis, l'chamshek ha'ara v'histaklos mifnei Eric Anpin. So you look at the tzitzis, and what does that do for you? He says it pulls down a ha'ara v'histaklos mifnei, this is like Eric Anpin looking at them, al pnei Zer Anpin, as if he is looking at the face of Zer Anpin, and pnei Zer Anpin al pnei Nook. Now, I just need to read that again, because now we're back on the front again. He says, now that they're on the front, you're supposed to be able to look at them, and what do you get out of that? You're able to stream down ha'ara v'histaklos, So as you're looking at it, it's like you're having an histaklus of from the face of Eric Anpin out to the Pnei of Zer Anpin, with everything is around your front now. Pnei Zer Anpin al Pnei Anuk, and from Zer Anpin into the face of the Nuk. I'm not sure how that works because now I'm in the front. For Lahamshik Ha'aras Ainim de Zer Anpin. So now you're going to take, as you're looking at it, this is another kavanah. You take the concept is the eyes of Zer Anpin. Zer Anpin, the base Ainin Denuk Kadisha Dezah. So from the eyes of Zer Anpin, it's mashma. I think that she's around the front at this point, but I don't really know how you got. She's in his back, and now they're in the front. So I'm not really sure how that works. But now he says these are the eyes that are looking at Zer Anpin, for the face of Eric Anpin, and from Eric of Zer Anpin going to the face of the Nuk. So he says, look at this. He says, if you add this revua of the yud the revua of the what's the right way to say this of the milui of alafim, of which is Zer Anpin, this is a gematria 130. So this is the hara from Zer Anpin. This is his right eye, and on the left side is a duplicate, and that's his left eye. So you have two 130s, which is the concept of ayin, which is also the concept of going to the das of the nuk of the dasas or kalos, which is kal is the gematria 132. Then he says that's the ayin yamin, and then he shows what's coming out of the ayin, which is a 130. And then there's Hey Chasadim inside of that 130, which also makes 130 on both the right eye and on the left eye. So he says, here's another one too that you could know. You could have this kavanah as well, the milui kona. Just the milui of the word, the number 151, also has a gematria. Take 151, take 21 away from it, and you're going to come down to 132. Now, going over here, now we got to this. This is the flow, I guess. Gam Yakavin the milui kona, we did that. Nai the chitzonis, the yitzira. Now, a real good understanding of this is the most, which I don't have particularly, which is the lower part of Yetzirah. So Yetzirah represents Zer Anpin. What part are we talking about? The outside of the outside. This is the most exposed part of Zer Anpin. And what's the point here? What are we doing while we bringing all of this down? All of this flow of energy from the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, while we're bringing it down, is the Hafri, the Kali, Mekalim, Benai, the Hitzonius, the Yitzira. So not to be thrown by the Kitzonius or the Yitzonius, it's the way out part. The Kiyus Olamim in the Rantke, the Nefesh, the Ruach. So we have to just, in a little bit of time here, just to try to decipher all of what they said. What we're trying to do with all of this ha'ara that we're getting, and we're bringing it down into the Nuk and so on and so forth, as says that the Nuk corresponds to her position, to the Nai of Zer Anpin. So we have klipos that are around the Nai of Zer Anpin, and the Kitzonis, the Chitzonius, the Yitzira, and that's where Zer Anpin is located. Bechem mochim mezivug. So what we're doing, we're streaming down onto them of a mochim that come from a zivug, and it produced this skiyus olamim. And then he describes it a little bit. It says the whole set of lights, all five lights of the light, which is called nefesh, which is part of ruach. So ruach also has the rantchi, and the nefesh part of the rantchi, and then we're going to call the whole rantchi of the nefesh, not just a part of it, but the whole thing. This is what it looks like. That's what's coming down. It's going to be what are those? This represents the oros that are going to ultimately go to the nai. This is the oros of nai. And then, so then it says, Zer Anpin, the Chitzonius, the Chesiya. So let's talk about that. Now we're in Yasiya. So it's going to go from there into Siya. So what are we trying to do? So first, the idea is to separate the Kali. This is ultimately what you're trying to do here, is to separate the Kali from the Chitzonius and the Kitzonis Zer Anpin. And from the Kitzonis and Zer Anpin, okay, we'll have to stop here. Okay, that's going to ultimately go to the Nuk. And we'll get onto that tomorrow with God's help. This is Baruch Flashman.